Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope you're having a great day. Well, today I'm so excited to be part of the Spellbinders Blog Hop featuring a new collection. It's the Shadowbox collection by Becca Feeken, and it is super neat. This is the first time I get to play with one, and the wheels were turning. I wanted to make so many more projects. I just didn't have time. But today I'm going to be using a beautiful Flutter Wing Shadowbox butterfly set. And then also I'm using the smallest of the Shadowbox die sets. This is the 1/2 inch size. There's actually 3 in total. There's a 1/2 inch, there's a 3/4 inch, and then there is a 1 inch die that will create different widths on your Shadowbox. So today I'm playing with the smallest one. The nice thing about the Shadowbox is that it coordinates beautifully with the Spellbinders Elegant 3D Vignettes Collection. Oh my goodness. So the vignettes are made to coordinate with the shadow boxes, which is fantastic. I also want to tell you a little bit about the blog hop. There is a chance for 3 lucky blog readers to win a $50 gift certificate to the Spellbinder shop. How wonderful is that? So I encourage you to check out the Spellbinders blog, and I will leave links down below in case you want to check that out and start at the beginning. Okay. We're going to create a shadow box. Now this is super duper neat because it's adjustable. And what I mean by that is you can create different size shadow boxes. There's 5 dice in total, and how you adjust is through the length of your cardstock that you're going to be using. Okay, so I cut out 4 5-inch strips of pattern paper. Now the 5-inch strips are going to create a 5-inch shadow box. Now the width of your strips for the 1/2 inch Shadowbox die set that I have here, there are different widths for each one of the dies. So since I have the smallest, I cut out a strip that's 2 1/8 inches wide and then 5 inches long. Now again, the width will be the same, always 2 1/8 of an inch, but the length can adjust. You can make it, well, I don't think you'd want to make a 2-inch box, but you can make a 12-inch box if you wanted to. So that's the neat thing about this. Okay, now I've already taped down my first set. Now what you want to do is bookend them together. 2 of the dies are basically the same, and there's little notches on those dies. You want to align the notch on the top right of them to the top right corner of your cardstock. Once you have them lined up, you'll do the same thing with the bottom, and you'll do that with each one of those. Now you're going to need 4 panels, 2 of each one of those. And I had already die cut mine out, and they look kind of funny, but I wanted to show you that each one of these cut the corner edges, but they also score, and that's important. And I also cut out 4 of those little tabs. Okay. Now, all we have to do is take each one of these little panels and using the score mark as a guide, the score marks from the very top and the very bottom, I'm using my scoring board and reinforcing those score lines, but continuing them from the top all the way to the bottom. And this is important to keep your paper straight because you want the score lines to connect from the top to the bottom. We'll do the same thing to this panel. Lovely. Now I'm going to do that to all 4. Once they're done, I'm going to reinforce my score lines on each one of my panels. Now again, you need 2 panels of each one, so 4 panels total, and I'm just going to reinforce those score lines. Now in case this is not making sense or I'm not making sense, I want to tell you guys that Becca Feeken created a tutorial on how to create a shadow box that's very detailed, and she explains it so wonderfully, and I will link that tutorial down below in my description area in case you want to check it out and know more about the shadow boxes. Okay, now I have them all reinforced, and again we have 2 different styles, 2 of each. There's a thicker side and a thinner side. Okay, you want to make sure that all the sides line up, so all the thinner sides line up and then all the thicker sides line up. Now what we're going to do is create a train with them, but we're going to alternate each one of our little panels. So we're going to go one style and then a different style, and then one style and then a different style. And again, you want to make sure all the thinner sides, mine are at the top, and then the thicker sides are on the bottom. Next, we're going to take some super strong double-sided tape. I'm using score tape here, and I'm joining at the seams with a piece of my score tape. We're going to connect them all together with that piece of score tape. Now, we're going to remove the release paper, and it's important that you line up from score line to score line. That's so important with the Shadowbox. Next, we're going to use our little tabs. Now, they have score lines also. I'm just folding it in half, and these are basically reinforcers for each one of the seams. I'm placing the score line down the middle, that's centered, and then I'll just attach it to each one of my little, they look like little boats. Okay, the last one, I'm going to only go halfway. That's going to be our finishing end. Okay, after we have our reinforcers adhered, we're going to go ahead and add some score tape to the very bottom of each one of these little boats. And remember, this is the thicker end. We'll just remove all the backing. Lovely. Okay, now I'm going to kind of reinforce my score lines a little bit, and this is where we create a little box for each one of our little boats. I'm going to put the top flap over the smaller flap, securing them together, and so we should have a 1/2 inch square box on each one of these. So my boats are turning into boxes. Now this one I kind of got offline and my tape stuck really good, so I wasn't sure how it turned out, but it's a little bit forgiving, so that's a good thing. Now these little flaps, you want to push them in. Two of our little boxes have little flaps. You want to make sure all ends are pushed in, and then you just kind of do a little tucking and twirl your shadow box, and so they all lay inside each other. For my end piece, my score tape wasn't holding as well as I wanted to, so I broke out my multimedia mat to make sure that they close. But it's so neat how they just fold into each other to create a perfectly square shadow box. I'm just holding it together for a little while until my glue connects it. But that is our shadow box. Super neat. Be a cute little frame for a little sentiment if you want to put on your wall too. Okay, I have a piece of 11 inches by 5 inches pattern paper. This is actually from a 12 by 12 sheet of cardstock. You're going to take that sheet and score it 5 inches, score it 5.5 inches, and then you're going to flip your sheet around and score it 1/2 inch on the end. It's going to create a little bit of a lip on the end. Now the cardstock that I'm using, I don't know if it was because I've had it for 100 years, but it kept cracking, but it was still workable, so I just went with it. Okay, so this is going to be the top of our shadow box, and it's actually going to be the back side of our shadow box also. I think if you use two-sided pattern paper, it creates a real pretty box. Next, I'm taking my score tape. I'm adding a piece to the very lip, and then I'm going to create a 5 by 5 box that our shadow box is going to sit on. After we remove the backing, all we have to do is place our 5 by 5 shadow box right over our score tape, making sure it's centered. I had to adjust it just a little bit. There we go. And then I want to add one more piece to the very top of score tape. There we go. Now I'm going to fold over the flap from the bottom, securing that to the bottom of the shadow box, and then fold up the flap on the very top. And then we have a lid and a back for our box. Super neat. I think this box could be used for a multiple of things. My goodness. You could even put hot cocoa in there. I think that would be so adorable, and put a little, maybe a snowman on the very front. I think that'd be cute. Now you can notice my butterfly is upside down, but we're going to fix that in just a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to do a little bit of die cutting with the beautiful Flutterwing Shadowbox butterflies. There's 2 butterflies, and they're on the larger side. So I have some pattern paper, some pink and then yellow. Now the butterflies come in three different pieces. Okay, it creates the outline that are 2 pieces, and then it creates the detailed inside line. And I actually put my butterflies wrong side up. I want to put them face down. That will help when I run it through the die cut machine. Okay, but the outside pieces just fit together like a puzzle, and that creates the shadow of the butterfly. And then to create the body of the butterfly with the detail, you just put the outline back on them. So once everything's die cut out, I don't know if I explained that very well, but let's try again. To create the detailed butterfly, you put them both together, and then to create the outline, you just take the two pieces and then you just line them up together to create the butterfly shadow or background. Okay, now I'm going to adhere my butterfly body to my detail butterfly here, just using my multimedia mat. Place those in the center. Now I want to give these a little bit of dimension, so I'm going to take a very thin piece of foam tape and place that behind my butterfly body. It's going to give it a lot more dimension. We'll just tape that in the center. We'll adhere this to our background, and I'm fluffing up the wings to give it a little more dimension. And I think they are so gorgeous. My goodness, they're pretty butterflies. We'll do the same thing to the smaller one, and our butterflies are finished. Okay, we're going to grab our shadow box, and I have a piece of 4 inches by 4 inches squared cardstock. I wanted to add a little detail to the edge of it. Now, since our shadow box is 5 by 5, we have a 1/2 inch border all around the inside. So this panel, which is 4 by 4, is going to fit perfectly on the inside of our shadow box. I'm going to add some score tape to the edges, and then using a lace trim, I'm going to add lace trim around this panel. That's the great thing about the dimension you get with the shadow boxes, is you can add as much detail as you want. They'll fit beautifully inside that box. Once I have my lace trim adhered all around the edges, so pretty, I'll flip this around and use my multimedia mat, and then we'll go ahead and adhere that on the inside of our box here. It's going to fit beautifully. Lovely. Now we're going to go ahead and add some foam tape behind the largest butterfly, and then we'll just put this inside our shadow box. And again, with these shadow box sizes, you could do any size. You could do an 8 by 8, 6 by 6, 5.5 by 5.5. You could do a 5 by 7 if you wanted to. You just adjust 2 of your strips that you die cut out. But I'm going to embellish my butterfly with a few pearls, and then now we get to decorate the front here. Now I'm going to add I want to add a closure to my box, just to make it a little more dainty. So I'm using some seam binding. I'll add a strip of score tape to the very bottom of my flap, and then I'm also going to add a piece to the bottom panel here. Now after we have that adhered, I'm going to remove the release paper, and starting with the side here, I'm going to add some seam binding, just the edge of it. I'm going to trim it down and then add another piece of score tape right over the top of the seam binding. Now to hide the edge of the seam binding so you can't see it, I'm going to use some more of my lace trim, and I'm just going to place it all the way from the left to the right, covering up my ribbon end there. So it just gives the more finished look. Now we'll do the exact same thing to the very top. I'll add another piece of seam binding, and I'm making sure that I line them up with the bottom one. And you don't want it overhanging too much, otherwise you'll be able to see the end. I'll add a piece of score tape, and then we'll add another piece of our little lace trim, covering up the end of our seam binding. And I think that looks so pretty. You could even put a jewelry in there. Oh my goodness, some earrings or a necklace. So neat. Okay, I wanted to add a sentiment. So I found one of my sentiments from a stamp set I've had in my stash. I'm going to go over my panel. I'm just opening it up so it's flat. It was an afterthought, but I heat embossed it with white embossing powder, and my sentiment says, "You make me feel like I can fly." I thought it went perfectly with my little butterfly. Next, I'm going to embellish it, the little flowers on my cover, and then my butterfly with some pearls. And my paper tore a little bit, but I don't think it looks too bad. But you just open it up and there's your little box. I think it's just a lovely little gift. You just tie the bow to secure the top to the bottom, making a little closure. And I'm leaving the tails a little bit long, only because if you want to untie it and open it up, you still have the length to retie it again. But that's my shadow box, guys. Super fun, super easy, and again, there's 3 different sizes. I encourage you to join the blog hop. Links are down below in the description area, but there's lots of inspiration using the Becca Feeken Shadowbox dies. Thank you so much for joining me. I wish you a fantastic day, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.